Hello everyone, this is part 2 of What If Naruto Was the God of Taijutsu, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
To say Naruto was pissed off again would have been an understatement. Naruto was not out in the world saving princesses or fighting giant monsters. No. Instead Naruto was in his home village, walking dogs. Some ninja mission this was. Naruto hated dogs. Not that they seemed to like him either. Thankfully they were almost back to the Inuzukas. When their house came into sight Naruto was reminded of when they first got there. Naruto had been surprised when it was Kiba who had greeted him that morning. Although Kiba looked just as surprised. What are you guys doing here, and who the hell are the two weirdos in spandex? Kiba had asked Naruto and Hinata, but it was Guy who answered. Ah, a classmate of Naruto and Hinata. It is a pleasure to make your youthful acquaintance. I am Mike Guy, I am Naruto and Hinata's Jonin sensei. This here is Rock Lee and he is their fellow teammate. Kiba had to cover his ears. Sometimes having enhanced hearing was a pain. Is he always like this? Kiba seethed. You have no idea. Naruto whispered back. We are here to walk your dogs. It is the mission assigned to us. Kiba turned to Hinata as she spoke. Man, one quiet girl with 3 loud guys. Whatever, follow me. I'll lead you to my mom, she's in charge of all that stuff. Kiba stepped inside followed by Team Guy. The first thing Naruto noticed as he stepped in was the smell. It smelled like 100 dogs lived there. Naruto didn't know how right he was until a dozen came running out of an adjoining room. They were barking wildly and Naruto took a nervous step back. Hey, down. Come on guys, what's wrong? Sit. Kiba barked out orders to his dogs before turning around and giving the team an apologetic smile. They aren't usually like this. Sorry, I don't know what's gotten into them. They smell the boy. Soon, Kiba's mom answered as she also walked into the room. She was staring straight at Naruto. Who? Me. Why should they be mad at me? Naruto looked peevishly down at the dogs. You just have an odd smell about you is all. Tsume waved Naruto's question off. Now, here are all the leashes. She threw a bundle of them which Lee caught. They need to go all around the village. Make sure that if they poop, you pick it up, and try not to let them attack anyone, including your orange teammate there. Tsume was again looking at Naruto and he wasn't sure he liked the look on her face. He was pulled out of his recollection by Guy's loud knock on the door. Inuzuka-san. We have returned from our youthful mission with our flames burning even more brightly than when we started. The door flew open quickly. It was Kiba again. He gave a meaningful look to Naruto. Does this sensei of yours have a volume switch? When Naruto shook his head Kiba scoffed. Anyway, show yourselves in, I was just leaving to meet with my team. Maybe we'll get an awesome mission. I hope we get to save a princess. Kiba was now walking off. Naruto couldn't help but feel a little sad for the boy who was about to have his dreams crushed. You guys wait here. I will go in and get this stamped and we'll be on our way for the next mission. Guy went inside, followed by the herd of dogs. After just a few moments he came back out. Okay team, let's have a quick lunch and then get back to the Hokage tower for our next mission. Guy whipped out 8 ration bars and handed them out. 2 for each of us. Eat up. Naruto blanched as he crunched into his. What the hell kind of lunch is this? How can these things possibly be filling? Naruto, you have much to learn. Guy was in lecture mode now. These bars contain all the essential nutrients to keep the body going through a day of hard work. They are important in our diet and are the main food of shinobi on missions. So you better get used to the taste. Naruto didn't like it but he ate it anyways. Guy-sensei had yet to be wrong. Soon they were off towards the tower again. At first Lee couldn't place the uncomfortable feeling he had been getting. The whole walk with the dogs and now to the Hokage tower it felt like everyone in the village was glaring at him. Lee couldn't understand why they would glare at him so he followed their eyes and realized it was Naruto. The entire village was shooting Naruto dirty looks. Lee couldn't fathom why they would be so mad at him though. According to Hinata, Naruto had pulled a few pranks. They couldn't have been bad enough to piss off the whole village though, right? Guy-sensei definitely didn't hate him. So he couldn't be all bad. As they walked into the Hokage's office, Lee turned his thoughts away from his teammate to listen to the Hokage give them the next mission. Excellent, the Hokage smiled at the team. Here is your pay for this mission. For your next mission I would like you to assist the Akomas with moving. They have all their boxes packed but just need them and their furniture moved across the village. As the Hokage spoke he passed out the pay. Naruto made a grunt of displeasure but otherwise remained silent. Guy-sensei had explained to them the point of the missions, how they developed teamwork and were a great way to make quick pay. He had also thrown in that they were stuck with them for 2 weeks thanks to their team arrangement. Lee couldn't complain. Sure, he didn't like the boring missions but they left it easy to stay in the village to have training time. As they set off to do their next mission, they started walking as they normally did. Guy-sensei and himself were in the front with Naruto just barely behind them. The orange-clad boy had stepped on Lee's sandals a couple times, he was so close. Hinata held a good distance back. Hey sensei, what do we gotta do to get off of this 2 week of D ranks? Naruto jogged up to the other side of their sensei to ask the question. Taking this opportunity, Lee noticeably fell back and started walking with Hinata. She just glanced at him curiously. Lee spoke quietly. Have you noticed the looks Naruto has been getting? Hinata nodded. Well, do you know what is up with that? You had mentioned about him pulling pranks but were they really that bad? Hinata shook her head again before speaking up. As far as I know, Naruto-kun has received these looks since before he pulled even his first prank. Hinata looked suspiciously at the people who walked by as they talked. Even my own family forbade me from talking to him, they said he was dangerous. Lee frowned. Dangerous how? What's dangerous? Lee and Hinata both jumped. The topic of their conversation was now walking backwards right in front of them. He gave them a weird look before Lee managed to jumble out an excuse. Well, C-rank missions. Hinata here had been questioning what they were like and they are dangerous, you know. Lee gave a nervous chuckle. Guy-sensei just said the same thing. But I think we can handle them no problem. After all, I'm gonna be Hokage. Lee gave a sigh of relief. Naruto had accepted his excuse easily enough. He didn't know why, but he didn't feel like bringing it up with him. Lee doubted it would have made him comfortable. Naruto appeared oblivious to the looks, but Lee was almost sure it was a farce. Naruto walked with them the rest of the way, asking Lee questions about the kind of missions he had been on and if he had ever saved a princess. Lee answered the best he could but he was distracted now. How could Naruto be dangerous? It didn't make sense. Once he could talk more with Hinata he might have more insight. He would just have to wait. They were here. Akoma-san. We are here to help you move. Guy screamed at the building. A confused-looking elderly couple stepped out of the building. When they saw the leaf symbol on Guy's belt, recognition dawned on their faces. Ah, yes good. We were wondering when the Hokage would send you shinobi. We would appreciate it if you would get started right away. The husband said. Right, you guys heard them, get to work. Lee watched Naruto nod excitedly and start to form the ram seal. No clones, Naruto. You can't improve if you rely on them all the time. Naruto frowned at his sensei's words but nodded. This act pulled the couple's attention to Naruto though. What is that doing here? The elderly woman practically spat. I don't want him anywhere near my possessions. That little thing will rob us blind. Lee turned quickly to Hinata and saw her glance at him quick too. Then they both turned to Naruto to see his reaction. To Lee's surprise it wasn't anger. It wasn't even sadness. What Lee saw was much more confusing than that. What Lee saw in Naruto was fear. But what was he afraid of? I assure you, Naruto is no thief. He is a ninja of the leaf and is sworn to protect its citizens and everything they own. Guy set his hand on Naruto's shoulder. Lee noticed Naruto visibly relax at the touch. Guy-sensei was amazing. Of course, if you are still uncomfortable with my team then we can head back. The women started to nod. I'm sure the Hokage will understand when I tell him that you decided to reach into your lingering youth and move everything without the aid of shinobi. The woman started to sputter at that. What? But, you can't do that. She screeched. I fail to see why not. After all, if my team of youthful ninja isn't right for the job, I couldn't possibly see any other ninja to be bothered with this assignment. The woman was about to say something again before her husband interrupted. We would be honored if you young ones would help us. Just keep an eye on your student. You know, to put my wife at ease. Of course, Guy said in clipped voice. The old man gave Naruto a little glare before he let them in. Lee was even more curious now. The more that happened, the more badly he felt he had to hear what Hinata had to say. It might be nothing, but any little bit of information was welcome at this point. This outright hostility was not the result of pranks. Alas, he had no time. Between the four of them moving boxes and furniture at their own paces, he rarely saw Hinata during the time of the whole mission. That didn't stop him from trying to talk with their employers though. Coming back from just doing a stack of boxes, Lee met the elderly man at the door. I was wondering, Lee hoped this was coming off casually. I did not know that my teammate had stolen things from people before. Where have you heard such things? The old man scoffed. Heard such things? You don't need to have heard him to know he's done it. The brat's a demon. They do worse than just steal. Lee was confused but tried not to show it. He had to hold a look of just casual interest. I am sorry, I am afraid I do not understand what you mean by demon. The old man seemed to be considering his answer. Like he was nervous of saying the wrong thing. How strange. Unfortunately for Lee, he was interrupted. Lee, this is no time for breaks. Let your fire burn brightly and transport with all your might. Guy-sensei was running towards them on a handstand. Yes, Guy-sensei. I apologize for slacking off while the rest of you are working so hard. I will lift 4 times the amount I had been before as punishment. Lee dashed inside and quickly stacked 4 boxes in each arm and started running to the other end of town. Darn, I was about to find out something big too, I know it. Lee silently cursed to himself. It didn't matter though. There would be more chances, there were a lot of boxes after all. However, to Lee's annoyance, there weren't any more chances. It was like Guy-sensei was following him now. Almost like Sensei knew he was asking things he probably shouldn't be. But surely Sensei couldn't have known that. Guy-sensei wasn't really that all-knowing. Right. Soon enough the mission was over. The couple thanked them, although Lee doubted they meant Naruto, judging by the final glare they gave him. Now they were on their way back to the tower. As they were walking, Guy started talking. It appears to be about 3 o'clock. We will go collect our reward but stop missions here for today. I would like to treat you all to some lunch before continuing our training. Naruto began to say something but Guy quickly cut him off. No ramen, you need to eat more than that. Naruto didn't respond but dropped his head in defeat. He was too predictable at times. He stayed quiet the whole way to the Hokage's office, where they received their money. So, Lee-kun, tell me how you like your new teammates. I do hope you are getting along well with them. The Hokage's question caught Lee off guard. Their flames burn very brightly, Hokage-sama. I am honored to work with them. Lee bowed as he spoke. The Hokage laughed and waved his bow off. No need for that, dear boy. I am curious though. Are you upset having lost your old teammates? Lee thought before answering. I have not lost them, Hokage-sama. I can still see them and hopefully I shall get to do more missions with them sometime. The Hokage seemed pleased with his answer. That's the spirit. Guy has trained you well. I look forward to seeing you all again bright and early tomorrow morning. The Hokage dismissed them. The team exited the tower and began following Guy as he led them through the bustling streets of Konoha. During this time Lee had hoped to talk with Hinata about what she had meant earlier. Only to be thwarted again by Naruto, who fell back into line with him. Hey, isn't this great? A free meal? Too bad it isn't ramen though. Naruto's huge smile looked awfully fake to Lee now that he was this close. Lee glanced quickly around to see the ever-present glares before responding. Yosh. Free food is fantastic. I cannot think of the last time that Guy-sensei felt so inclined to treat me out to eat. He says my stomach is far too full of youth for his wallet to handle. Naruto and Lee continued to converse about food with an embarrassed Hinata in the middle. Suddenly her stomach growled. Hinata gave a small eep. If her face had been red before, it was absolutely glowing now. I'm sorry. ID. She was interrupted by Naruto's laugh. Guess you're really hungry too. Guy-sensei is in for it tonight. Naruto's smile seemed a little more loose and honest as he spoke. Just as Lee thought this, Guy spoke up, we have arrived. Let us enter and dine to our heart's content. Naruto and Lee grabbed Hinata and dashed inside, followed by their laughing sensei. Their excitement was cut abruptly short. When the genin ran in, they could practically feel the tension in the restaurant. The fact that the whole place got silent very quickly didn't help. It didn't take anyone on the team long to figure out why. Guy was standing silently behind them now. A waiter emerged from the back and quickly approached them, sweating profusely. I'm sorry to inform you, Guy-san, but we are booked full right now. The waiter mumbled nervously. Guy glanced at all the empty tables around the restaurant. His students were watching him for his reaction. Unfortunately, Guy didn't see much he could do besides leave. Calling the waiter out on his obvious lie would only cause problems. I see. Then we shall be sure to take our business elsewhere. Lee had had enough. Naruto was getting treated like garbage everywhere they went. He didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve any ill will at all for that matter. In short, this was bullshit. Lee was about to vocalize these thoughts when Hinata surprised them all. You're all despicable. She had spoken quietly, but due to the silence in the restaurant, there was no doubt they all heard her. Her head had been turned down when she first spoke, but now she lifted it. The waiter gave a controlled yelp and jumped back. The sight of Hinata's active Byakugan apparently had unnerved him. I'll make it known to the rest of my family the gravity of this insult. They shall see to it that you are out of business. Hinata knew this was an empty threat. She actually had very little sway within her family. But they didn't know that. Her unmarked head clearly marked her as main branch, and to her silent pride, she actually kind of sounded like her heiress for once in her life. She found if it was for Naruto, she could do almost anything. Besides, once word of what she said got around, more than enough people would probably avoid the restaurant anyways. So they might go out of business without her clan's interference. The waiter seemed about ready to sputter out a response, but Hinata didn't even want to hear it. She turned on her heel and left the restaurant, the rest of her team in tow. Wow, she is scary when she is mad, Lee whispered to Naruto. Naruto could only nod dumbly to Lee's words. He was so stupefied by Hinata's reaction he had completely forgot why it was necessary in the first place. It seemed all women were scary as hell when pissed to him. Guy was for once in his life torn. While he didn't want to see the restaurant that served such delicious food go out of business, they definitely deserved it. No one treated his students that way with him around. He had made that clear while on their second mission. But Hinata's reaction had in a strange way almost made it worth it. The passionate flames that were flying off of her were tremendous. Guy could have cried. He just hoped it wouldn't take another incident like this to pull them back out. As they walked out, Hinata began to realize what she really just did. How could she have done that to Guy-sensei, to Lee, and most importantly, to Naruto? She had definitely just ruined the rest of the day. She turned around to apologize but was met with what appeared to be hesitant looks from her teammates. That couldn't be good. She began to bow but Guy cleared his throat. No apology is needed, what you did was definitely within your bounds as a teammate. So how about some ramen? Guy felt he had to change the subject. Surely Naruto would be happy at the thought of ramen. In fact, if Naruto had been upset at all, he didn't show it. At the word ramen, Naruto started jumping around before he grabbed Hinata and Lee by the hands and started pulling them off to his favorite stand. Guy allowed a small grin. The wonders of youth. Naruto was actually quite relieved. He had expected his teammates to ask by now about the looks he was being given. He wasn't that unobservant. He saw them glance at the other citizens. He knew they saw the glares. When that old hag had called him a menace, he had been afraid they would ask about that too. How was he supposed to explain that one? Now this restaurant crap. He really had expected a, hey, what's up? But instead his teammates got angry for him and were now trying to cheer him up. It made him feel oddly warm inside. He knew they were curious, but as long as they didn't ask he was okay. He could always just blame it on pranks if they did ask though. And here we are, the greatest ramen stand in all of the Fire Country. Naruto stood looking at his team, both hands gestured to the stand. Naruto, you make an old man's heart warm. Lee looked over Naruto to see an elderly-looking man smiling brightly at them. Well, come have a seat and introduce me to these friends of yours. Naruto nodded. Come on guys, over here. He ran over and plopped himself on the far right seat. Lee sat next to him, Guy next to him and Hinata on the far left. Alright guys, this old man is Tuki, the owner of the stand. That girl over there is Ayami Nichan. Naruto gestured to a slightly older girl as she came into view from behind the stand. Old man, Ayami Nichan. These are my teammates, Lee and Hinata, and this is my new teacher, Guy-sensei. Naruto gestured to the left as he talked. It's nice to meet you all. Chuki greeted. Naruto here is our best customer, any friend of his is welcome here anytime. Lee liked this guy. Finally there was someone who wasn't treating Naruto like scum, but more like family. Guy Sensei seemed to share his sentiments. Your fires burn most brightly. I see why Naruto comes here so much already. I can only imagine the excellent quality of your noodles. At the mention of food, 3 stomachs growled. The old man laughed. Sounds like we're making good business tonight. What'll you all have? The team ordered their food, and then made light conversation as they waited for their noodles. When they got there, everyone dug in. Even Hinata seemed to eat with a distinct haste. As they started to get done, Guy cleared his throat. When he was sure he had his students' attention, he began talking. I wanted to discuss what you can expect us to be doing for the next couple of weeks. All of his students nodded. As you know, we start practice at 5 in the morning. We train for 3 hours, or an hour for each rotation. Same as we did this morning. After we have done that, we break for an hour breakfast. Be sure to get your proper nutrients, or you will have a most unyouthful day. At 9 we report to the Hokage for missions. Some missions are longer than others so we may only do a couple a day. Between missions we should have another meal, but not a big one, we have to be diligent. Those ration bars work just fine. We will end missions as close to 4 as possible. After which we will eat as we are now. So, what do we do after this? Naruto asked. We train some more. Guy answered, now run back off to where we met this morning, I will take care of the bill. If you are not there before me you will all run 500 laps around Konoha. Guy stood up and pulled out his wallet and his students were gone in a flash. The ramen stand owner started cracking up. You sure are an interesting fellow. But then again, Naruto is an interesting kid so I suppose it's only natural. That he is. His fire burns more brightly than most, despite all that he's been through. I offer my thanks to you for helping him out. I couldn't turn my back on him, he's a good kid. The old man waved off Guy's thanks. Just do me a favor and make sure that he and his teammates become fantastic shinobi. Guy smiled. Of course, I wouldn't settle for anything less. Now if you'll excuse me, I can't give them too much of a head start. I wasn't joking about those laps. Guy disappeared, leaving a laughing Chuki. Fortunately for the genin they got there just before their speedy sensei. Good, good. I see you are improving already. Guy beamed at Naruto and a panting Hinata. Now on to training. Yes, so what kind of training is this? Some awesome taijutsu killing moves? Naruto guessed. It was Lee who answered. It is better than that. Better. What's better? Ninjutsu. Naruto couldn't think of anything else better than learning sweet new moves. No. Physical exercise. Lee pumped his fists in the air. There is nothing better than doing 10,000 push-ups, followed by 5,000 sit-ups, and then 100 laps around the Leaf Village as a cool down. Naruto's mouth hit the ground. What kind of workout is that? It sounds like suicide. He couldn't fathom doing all that and still being done while it was light out. Then it hit him that they may well be out until midnight. Wait, how long are we doing this for? Only until 7. Guy answered. It is almost 5 now. I won't start you at what I'm having Lee doing but I expect you to progress fast. This workout is the best way to strengthen your muscles and it puts those weights I gave you to the real test. Now, Lee, I like what you suggested, get started. Yes sensei, if I cannot finish in the allotted time I will do 10,000 more push-ups with one hand and a boulder on my back. Lee leapt down and began doing push-ups at a rate that made Naruto sweat just looking at him. Great thinking Lee. Let your fires of youth scorch the sky. Guy gave Lee the thumbs up. Is it just me or does their crazy behavior just become that much crazier when we train? Naruto whispered to Hinata. She tried to suppress a giggle but it slipped out. Her face burned brightly again but Guy Sensei didn't give her long to think about that. For today, I am just going to have you do random exercises for a set amount of time. This is so I can get an idea of your limits and then I will know how far to push you in the coming days. Let's take after Lee and start with push-ups. Naruto and Hinata spent the next hour doing all sorts of things, ranging from jumping jacks to running around the clearing on their hands, something that proved very difficult for Naruto. Soon though the 2 hours was nearly done so Naruto and Hinata collapsed to the ground as they waited for Lee to finish his laps. Even Naruto's seemingly endless stamina had shown its limits during their intense workout. Hinata didn't even have the strength to be embarrassed from her close proximity to Naruto. You have done well. You would do even better to rest up tonight, for tomorrow will be just as rigorous. Guy started to lecture just as they heard Lee's panting as he slowly jogged into the clearing. Lee collapsed next to his teammates. I have finished the assigned task, Guy-sensei. Lee got out between gasps. He gave a lazy salute which Guy returned with full vigor. Excellent job, Lee. I am sorry I did not join you today, but now that they are set I will be sure to engage fully in the training myself tomorrow. For now, go home and rest. That goes for all of you. Guy disappeared in a swirl of leaves, to where, the Genins could only guess. Well, I shall see you both early tomorrow then. Lee staggered to his feet and was about to leave when Naruto called out to him. Hey, wait, bushy brow. Naruto stood up and brushed himself off. Hinata and I were gonna go shopping for something green, you know, we think Guy-sensei might appreciate it. You could come with us, it'll be fun. Right, Hinata. Why yes. While Hinata said this she inwardly hoped Lee declined. She liked Lee but she had been hoping it would just be Naruto and her. While she knew she lacked the courage to actually do anything and it would have been embarrassing, she would have been able to at least pretend it was a date. Lee thought about it. This was actually a good opportunity. He had yet to finish his conversation with Hinata and he needed to bond with them outside of training, he supposed. Alright, I will happily accompany you on your venture for new clothes. With you two also in green, we will become the Leafs Green Ninja team. Lee said, much to Hinata's disappointment. Not that she showed it and neither boy took notice. Awesome, let's get going. Naruto already seemed to be recovered from the 2 hours of brutal training. Lee and Hinata tiredly followed after him. Guy was pacing inside the Hokage's office. Some of the things he'd seen today greatly disturbed him. He just had to figure out how to voice his thoughts to the Hokage himself. Said old man looked greatly disturbed. It took a lot to get Guy to get like this. He hadn't seen it in years himself. He had a good idea what the source of his inner turmoil was though. It had to be Naruto. The Hokage sighed. Might as well get it over with. You can speak freely, Guy. It is apparent things have disturbed you today, tell me what they are. It was an order. Guy stopped pacing and straightened. It's about Naruto. The Hokage grimaced. Sometimes being wise had its downfalls. One was being right when you didn't want to be. The treatment the boy gets is downright unforgivable. He keeps them safe every day of his life and they call him a demon, accuse him of things he has never done, and bar him from their establishments. The Hokage sighed again. He always felt more his age when the boy's treatment was brought up. Tell me exactly what happened. Start from the beginning. Answer Guy did. He recounted everything from their missions, to the glares, and finally what had happened at the restaurant. After each telling, the Hokage sunk lower into his chair. He seemed to have overlooked so much. When Guy finished, the Hokage sat up straight again. I have missed so much concerning the boy. How is he doing? What of the reactions of his teammates? The boy just goes on smiling. I would never guess something was wrong if I wasn't there myself to witness everything. He hides it so well. I take comfort in saying I am most proud of all my students. The others have not questioned him, but they are definitely onto something. Yet they have asked him nothing and instead already treat him like a friend. While this is to be expected of my Lee, it warms my heart to see a kind Hyuga. Guy smiled slightly at the end. The Hokage could not return his smile though. Maybe, it would be best if we brought them in and informed them of what. No. The Hokage looked at Guy curiously. It was not often anyone interrupted him anymore. Especially to refuse a suggestion from him. Guy seemed to realize this but held his ground. Forgive me Hokage-sama, but I feel Naruto has to tell them himself. That is the only way for him to feel that they truly accept him. If we go behind his back and tell them, he will never be able to open his heart up to them. Please leave it to them. Guy was practically begging now. The Hokage looked at Guy a while longer before nodding. I understand, thank you for your report, Guy. I hope to hear more in the future. Perhaps some with more good news. Dismissed. Guy nodded and left out the door. When he left, the Hokage took a long drag on his pipe. He had a lot to think about tonight. Meanwhile, Guy's team was again walking through the busy streets of Konoha. Naruto was still in the lead, Lee and Hinata following closely behind him. Suddenly Naruto stopped hard. Lee bumped into him. What gives, Naruto? Lee backed up slightly to give Naruto his space. Naruto himself, turned around and rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment. Well, you see, I just realized, I don't know where we're going. Naruto gave a small chuckle. Lee sighed. He should have figured. Well, where do you normally buy your clothes? Lee regretted the question. Naruto's eyes lowered to the ground and his smile faded. But his smile quickly returned and Lee almost thought he imagined it. Well, I've never actually been clothes shopping. The grin plastered on Naruto's face made Lee feel sick. But where did you get your orange jumpsuit? Hinata squeaked out. Lee suddenly had a bad feeling about the answer they were going to get. Yeah, one of our old instructors gave this to me. It was super nice of him, huh? Naruto just kept smiling, oblivious to the look Lee and Hinata now gave each other. Lee realized Hinata had come to the same conclusion as him. Someone had intended to get Naruto killed on a mission. Orange wasn't exactly a stealthy color after all. It wouldn't have surprised Lee if it was the same instructor that taught Naruto his taijutsu. Well, I know of a good shop to get ninja clothes. Green shouldn't be hard to find there. Hinata was upset. How could so many people be so mean to Naruto? She was definitely going to make sure he didn't have to suffer anymore. She just needed to find the courage to make good on her silent promise. So, with Hinata now in the lead, the team was off again. Soon they entered a clothing store, just a block away from where they had been. As they walked around, Hinata noticed Lee grab a couple items, run up and buy them. He then went running to where Naruto was to help him choose. Hinata couldn't help but be curious as to what Lee had just purchased. She supposed she would find out soon though. Soon she was ready. She had found a nice hooded sweatshirt. It was striped green and gray horizontally and was just a little big for her, just the way she wanted. She also found some pants that were a dull green but seemed to fit her well, so she grabbed a few pair of those too. She was now outside of the changing room with Lee waiting for Naruto. Soon the boy stepped out with camouflage pants and a jumpsuit just as green as what Lee was wearing at the moment. She also noticed an orange t-shirt underneath, but what was Naruto without a little bit of orange? Lee gave him the thumbs up and Hinata nodded her acceptance as he peered at them inquisitively. He smiled at their reactions, went back in and re-emerged with his orange attire back on. I'll take all the clothes and you can just give me your pay. Hinata offered, sticking her hand out. In reality, she just didn't want him to do anything to him. The way he was treated, she wouldn't be surprised if they charged him double. Nah, that's okay, I can do it. Naruto held his clothes protectively. I'm totally capable of doing this by myself. It appeared he had misunderstood her intentions. Hinata gave a pleading look to Lee, who seemed to catch on. Come on, Naruto, let her handle it. Do you not know how much women love to shop? Just buying the product is another part to that experience. Naruto started to nod slowly as Lee took his clothes and handed them to Hinata. I suppose that makes sense, thanks Hinata. Naruto handed her the money and Lee led them out of the store. Hinata went and paid for everything without incident. But when she walked outside, she didn't immediately see her teammates. For just a second she got depressed and thought that maybe they ditched her. That is, until she heard them. Pissed, Hinata quickly over this way. She heard Naruto's not so quiet whisper and turned to see both him and Lee hiding behind a nearby sign. She walked over curiously. What are you guys doing? Naruto and Lee both turned to her and made a shush noise before turning their attention back to the store across the street. Hinata looked over but didn't see anything in particular. Not until Haruno Sakura walked out of a building anyway. Sakura-chan, both genin were practically drooling, their eyes had a strange glow about them. Suddenly they both seemed to realize the other was staring as well. Wait, you know Sakura-chan? Of course I know her, she's mine. Their mimicry of each other almost seemed rehearsed and would have made Hinata laugh if she didn't feel like her heart was crumbling apart. Sure, she knew of Naruto's crush on Sakura, but it still hurt whenever he looked at her that way. If only he would give her a glance like that. Even just once. This can only be settled one way, Lee declared, no longer trying to be quiet. Genkin. How is that supposed to solve anything? Naruto apparently gave up on being quiet too. Simple, the loser must give up on Sakura-chan and must help the winner get a girlfriend. What do you say? I say let's do this. Naruto and Lee assumed the ready positions. Hinata knew it was a terrible thought, but she just couldn't help but pray that Lee won. Okay, ready? Lee asked. Naruto nodded. Rock. paper, scissors, shoot. Lee threw rock. Naruto threw scissors. Yosh. Sakura-chan is mine. Lee jumped in the air. Best 2 of 3. Lee fell hard to the ground. What? He shouted, pointing an accusing finger at Naruto. I thought that was how we were doing it. That's how it's always done. Fine. Lee stood up and they both got back into position. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Lee again threw rock. Dot and Naruto again threw scissors. Best 3 of 5. She's walking away. Hinata interrupted the game as she watched Sakura walk down the street. She was also just trying to get Naruto to give up, not that she would ever admit it. Right. Sorry Naruto, but time is up. I look forward to your assistance in getting me a girlfriend. Lee bowed low before looking expectantly at Naruto. Naruto seemed to be in an internal struggle for just a second. Damn. Fine, but let's hurry, we gotta catch up to her. Naruto started running down the street. Lee was quick to be after him. A relieved and slightly happy Hinata trailed behind them both. Naruto didn't like to admit it, but maybe it was time he did give up on Sakura. After all, he had teammates now. They actually didn't treat him like dirt. They were even quickly becoming what he figured you would call friends. And if his friend wanted a date with Sakura, then he would be damned if he didn't get it for him. With this in mind, he called out to her, Sakura-chan. She stopped short. He noticed her shoulders go rigid, but she turned around all the same. At least she didn't jolt on them. That would have made things complicated. As they ran up, Naruto gave a nervous wave but then paused. Crap, he didn't come up with a plan at all. Time to wing it. What do you want, idiot? Sakura was pissed. She had just bought more perfume to impress Sasuke, but instead of her dream boy showing up, the class clown came running up instead. If he asked her out again, she would have to beat his brains out, again. Hey, I wanted to introduce you to my teammates. Naruto started lamely, scratching the back of his head. I already know them, Naruto, I was in your class. Naruto gulped. Yep, she was short on patience. Well, yeah, you know Hinata of course. Naruto gestured to his female teammate, but I doubt you know this handsome stud. This is Rock Lee. He graduated the year before us and he is one kick-ass taijutsu expert. Naruto built Lee up. Sakura had wanted to ask why they were paired up with a genin a year ahead of them, but her question was blown from her mind when she saw the so-called stud. The boy had the most atrocious clothes she had ever seen in her life. His eyebrows were thicker than should have been possible, not to mention his bowl cut was so out of style she almost cried. The worst yet was the creepily bright smile and thumbs up he was giving her. That damned idiot Naruto was making fun of her. If this was some kind of revenge for her rejecting him all the time, he was dead. It didn't matter, he was dead anyway, she decided. Lee couldn't think of what to say. His mind froze now that they were so close to her. She was staring, that had to be good. Now if he could get himself to drop the thumbs up and talk to her, he would be good. He never got the chance. Sakura suddenly sent a fist down on Naruto's head. Naruto, you idiot. What kind of joke is this? You're retarded and will never be funny, cool, or smart. Just get out of my life. As she spoke, she wailed on Naruto. Hinata just watched in mute horror as she saw Naruto get his typical beating from Sakura. Meanwhile, Lee, who'd never witnessed this before, couldn't bring himself to watch anymore. He was about to intervene when she stopped, looked up and ran past them, all the while screaming, Sasuke-kun. Lee was so surprised by the sudden change in her demeanor he turned to see who she ran after. Lee grew wide-eyed and his heart stopped for a fraction of a second. Sakura had run after who Lee could only assume was the last surviving Uchiha. But that wasn't who he was looking at. Walking on either side of Sasuke were his old teammates, Neji and Tenten. He was pulled out of his shock by Naruto. Sorry, bushy brow, with that bastard Sasuke around it is gonna be hard to get her, but don't worry, I'll make Sakura yours. Naruto seemed totally unfazed by his beating. Maybe a little heartbroken, but physically, it looked like she never touched him. But man, she sure does pack a punch still, almost like old times. Lee couldn't believe it, this was commonplace. Lee found his infatuation for Sakura dying quickly. Just as he was thinking this, Tenten must have caught sight of them because she was calling out to him. She grabbed Neji and pulled him over. A begrudged Sasuke and ignored Sakura followed. Lee, it's so good to see you again. Tenten said as she ran up and gave Lee a hug. Isn't that right, Neji? She gave her cold teammate a meaningful look. Yes, it has been quiet without you and Guy-sensei. Our new sensei has a knack for being late. Fortunately, we are able to train just fine without him. He spends most of his time on the rookie anyways. Lee nodded quickly. Coming from Neji, that quiet comment was the closest thing to a compliment Lee had ever received from him. He found himself just a little happy. Naruto cleared his throat and looked at Lee expectantly. Ah yes, Neji, Tenten, these are my new teammates. The blonde one is Uzumaki Naruto and the girl is Hyuga Hinata-sama. Neji finished coldly, practically spitting out the sama. Neji ni-san, Hinata said quietly. Whoa, he's your brother? Naruto asked. Cousins, idiot. Sasuke answered for him. Not that you'd know anything about clans. Watch yourself when talking about clans, Sasuke. Neji gave Sasuke a sideways glance. As fate has it, yours isn't around anymore either. Sasuke just glared at Neji. There was nothing he could do to the older genin and he knew it. Sakura had even gotten quiet from the tension that was beginning to build. We'll be taking our leave then, Neji said after a moment of silence settled over the genin. It's funny though. Looks like Guy-sensei seems the one to get all the misfit shinobi. With that he walked off. Sasuke followed quickly as did Tenten but not before she gave an apologetic smile to Guy's new team. Sakura of course, ran after them as well, trying to get Sasuke's attention again. Naruto had been about to set off at Neji and teach him a thing or two but Lee held him back. I know how you feel, Naruto, but Neji is the reason we must train to become geniuses of hard work. Neji was at the top of my graduating class, just like Sasuke was yours. When we are ready, we will take him on. But that is not until Guy-sensei says we are. Naruto finally seemed to calm down. Sorry bushy brow, he said panting heavily, next time, we'll get Sakura for sure. Lee shook his head. That is all right, I think I will have you help me with someone else. The way Sakura acted towards that genius has put a bad taste in my mouth. So then it's okay for me to go for Sakura-chan again. Naruto looked slightly hopeful. Nope. Remember the terms of our agreement was the loser had to give up on Sakura. Just because I do not want her does not mean you can go for her. As Lee was talking he gave Hinata a wink, unnoticed to Naruto. Hinata gave another small, eep, and a blush spread on her face. Naruto turned to Hinata when she squeaked. I can't believe that Neji guy is your cousin, Hinata. He's nowhere near as nice as you are. Hinata's blush got even deeper but she managed to mumble out a small thanks to his compliment. Satisfied, Naruto hefted his bag of clothes over his shoulder. Well guys, it's getting late. I'm gonna head home. We have a long day tomorrow after all. Lee nodded. Yes, I will see you tomorrow bright and early Naruto. Try not to be late. Gee good night, Naruto-kun, Hinata muttered. Yeah, I won't be. Good night guys. With that Naruto was off in the direction of his home. An awkward silence passed between Lee and Hinata. Naturally, Lee was the one to break it. You like him, do you not? Hinata gave one of her usual, eeps, and began blushing harder than Lee had ever seen. Sorry, not what I expected to say either. It is just strange. Earlier you told me that your family said he was dangerous and that you should stay away from him. And so you go and develop a crush on him. What is with that? Hinata quietly stared at her feet. It took her a minute to gain her composure. No one had ever called her out on her affection for the boy. She knew she didn't hide it well and yet no one had ever bothered to ask. Now when someone did she didn't know how to answer. So she just tried being honest. Be back before we started the academy. I was being picked on by some boys. And Naruto came to my rescue and the boys beat him up. I just left him there. Lee had to stand close to hear Hinata. They were still in the middle of the street which was still fairly noisy. After that I started paying attention to him. I was fascinated by him. Everyone picked on him, called him names, and told him he would fail. But he just kept on trying. Anytime someone told him he would fail he simply replied he was going to become Hokage. Hinata's voice was getting louder. I admired that. That strength he had. That confidence. To me it looked like he was absolutely glowing. Hinata began to blush heavily again before continuing. Gradually, I just fell in love with him. He was everything I wanted to be. If I could be with him, surely some of that would rub off on me. And now I'm his teammate. It makes me so happy to be with him and yet so sad to see the way he is treated. Hinata stood straight and looked at Lee suddenly. I have to know why he is treated that way. So I can help him, no matter what it is. Lee was shocked. He had definitely not expected that. Lee could now honestly say he knew Hinata better than he ever knew her cousin, and it had only been one day. That confidence at the end seemed to blow all the other times out of the water. She was determined. He was too. They would help Naruto together. They would be there for him. As his friends, they would make sure he didn't have to suffer. Right, so first we need to pull everything we know. Lee started knocking off points on his fingers. Tomorrow we shall see if Guy-sensei has any insight to give us. From there we will start doing things such as looking up stuff at the library and asking people who are close to him. There has got to be something. Hinata nodded. They both started walking down the street. Good, Lee said, we know dogs don't like his smell. Lee began knocking off points again as they continued their conversation into the night. Lee landed into the clearing where his team met up every morning. He was 15 minutes early today, but Guy-sensei and Hinata were there as expected. She was in the new attire they bought yesterday. After the conversation Hinata and himself had the night before, they decided to confide their findings to Guy-sensei and see if he could give them any insight. So naturally they had to be there early so Naruto wasn't around. Not that he was likely to be on time anyway, at least Lee hoped not. Lee. Guy-sensei wasn't quiet even during this early time of the day. I see you have come earlier than expected. Hinata arrived here just 5 minutes ago herself. It is great to see your flames kicked so high this early in the morning. Guy-sensei gave them his nice guy pose as he talked. Lee hated to not respond to his sensei with his own youthful speech, but they had to get the talk over with. So when he spoke in a normal volume, their sensei turned immediately serious. Hinata and I have something we wish to discuss, Guy-sensei. Lee watched closely for anything Guy might do to let him know he knew what they wanted to talk about. Seeing none, Lee continued, it is about Naruto. We have noticed the way he has been treated and we tried to come up with reasons as for why. Guy-sensei nodded slowly. Lee knew something was up now. He never knew his sensei to respond in such a sullen manner. He had to know something. We were hoping you would tell us anything you knew. Lee stepped away from the previous plan to present him the information and then asked. Hinata noticed this too but remained quiet. Lee knew their sensei better than she. He must have had a reason for not sharing their knowledge. Guy looked thoughtful. I cannot tell you, he finally said, his voice at a normal level now. Lee was about to protest but Guy held up his hand. It is Naruto's business. You wouldn't want me unveiling all your secrets to him, would you? He gave both of the students a meaningful look. They both looked ashamed. Guy thought about it for a moment. He could at least give them one more clue. Besides, I am not too sure I would feel comfortable committing a capital offense. Both of them looked up surprised. What do you mean capital offense? Hinata's mind was spinning. One more piece of the puzzle had just fallen into their laps. It fit well with the piece that her family said he was dangerous. It would also account for some glares. If people had said something to get themselves punished through death, of course the family would blame Naruto. But that was only 3 pieces. They had come up with a lot of them. It definitely didn't explain the dogs. Nor that seal she saw on his stomach when he gathered chakra. Or did it? Was that seal the offense? Funny question. Guy was back to his loud self. I thought you would know what a capital offense is. I bet even Naruto there knows. Hinata and Lee both whirled to see Naruto running into the clearing, also in his new green attire. Hinata began panicking. Surely he hadn't heard him at all. He was just arriving. But that didn't mean he wasn't hiding, listening. What would he think of her? Sorry Guy-sensei, I didn't catch that. Naruto ran up panting. He didn't seem aware at all that they had just been talking about him. Man, I'm the last one again. I thought I was doing good getting here early too. Naruto looked down in defeat. He had even ran again so as not to be the last. Not a problem, Naruto. First or last doesn't matter. The important thing is you're on time. I am so proud to see you in green clothes as well. You make me so happy as a teacher. Guy patted Naruto hard on the back, tears falling freely from his face. Naruto stumbled a little from his sensei's strong touch but managed to stay on his feet. He wouldn't ever admit it, but even he was still sore slightly from yesterday. Now, we'll start the same as yesterday. Hinata, come with me. Lee, make sure Naruto still remembers his stance. I want it done 10 times right today. After that, continue where you left off. Lee saluted his sensei as Naruto groaned. Guy led Hinata to the other side of the clearing. 10 times. Man, this sucks. Naruto went into his stance and looked at Lee to get his criticism. Lee couldn't help it. He looked at Naruto and was immediately lost in thought. Was it worth just asking him? Probably not. They only knew each other for a day now. It would probably take a lot longer than that for Naruto to come out and trust him with such information. The looks definitely made him uncomfortable, no matter how well he hid it. Come on, bushy brow, not again. Lee snapped out of it. You space out too much, you got some weird flames of youth or something. Lee smiled. Naruto wasn't quite up to him or Guy-sensei, but his talk was already getting there. Forgive me. I am pleased to tell you that your stance is perfect. Do your lap and get in it again. Lee was impressed. Naruto did it all 10 times without messing up. That was definitely not the results of a dead last. Perhaps just another sign that his teachers had truly misguided him. When Naruto was done, Lee did as his sensei instructed and they moved on to his drills. Tell me, Hinata, do you know any of the moves other than the basic Yukin style? Guy was pretty sure he knew the answer, but he might as well ask. As he figured, Hinata shook her head. What a shame, with a stance as solid as yours you are more than ready to learn more. Hinata lowered her head in shame. Thank you for your kind words, sensei, but only my clan can advance me farther in our style. They do not feel the same as you, however. Guy laughed. Hinata looked up in surprise. Was sensei making fun of her now? Did he agree with the clan? Fortunately for you, young Hinata, I happen to know a few of your clan's trade moves. I'm not called a Taijutsu expert for nothing. Hinata was speechless. What her sensei said wasn't even possible. Guy must have caught her disbelief because he quickly added, of course it is impossible for me to use your techniques. Not even my abilities are so great. But I have enough of a general understanding to teach some of them to you. Hinata started to say, I don't think my clan would app. Your clan cannot dictate what I teach you. If they have any qualms, tell them to take it to my boss. You do know who my boss is, right? Hinata nodded. Good. While Guy would gladly take any youthful challenge from the Hyuga clan, he doubted Hinata would be too happy he was beating up her family. Although, he doubted Neji would mind. Now tell me if you are familiar with the Juho Soshikan. Guy asked. Hinata again shook her head. It is a move where you gather chakra into your fists into the shape of a lion. It happens to be one of my favorite moves the Hyuga can use because it is more of a brute attack than other moves they use. It is also not hard to teach. The concept is simple, and while it is chakra consuming, I believe you can do it just fine. Hinata was impressed. Her sensei walked her step through step of the technique. At first Hinata had a hard to getting anything, but soon half her arms began to shimmer with chakra. Hinata felt something strange come over her as the chakra built up in intensity, and soon her arms appeared to be emblazed in blue fire. Hinata could only describe the feeling as accomplishment. She was actually learning one of her clan's techniques. She might be able to become the heir yet. Then her father would have to acknowledge her. Soon though her chakra gave out and she was forced to rest for a while. I'm sorry, sensei, Hinata said in between breaths. I will get this technique. Guy was impressed. Hinata showed a knack for the jutsu already. That and her confidence seemed to be coming out, without the need of a push from anyone. No need to rush yourself, we have many training sessions to get it. For now, let's spar lightly for the rest of the time. You can try more tomorrow. Hinata nodded. While she was disappointed that they couldn't continue this new move, Hinata knew her limits. She wasn't a stamina nut like Naruto. Thoughts of the boy brought a small blush to her face as she and Guy began sparring. Everything after that went the same through the end of that rotation and the next two. Hinata sparred against Lee for an hour, building her confidence. Meanwhile, Guy came at Naruto as he tried to make use of his clones. Naruto seemed to retain quite a bit of what they had practiced yesterday and was even now pulling off things Guy hadn't suggested. On the next rotation, Naruto had all but mastered the tree climbing exercise. Meanwhile, Lee and Guy went off to practice Lee's secret winning move. When Guy and Lee were done, they came back into the clearing to Naruto hanging upside down from the tree and a smiling Hinata. Excellent work, Naruto. Lee clapped for his teammate. Naruto rubbed the back of his head while he grinned happily down at them. And don't forget Hinata, Guy said as he put his hand on her shoulder. You are lucky to have such a great teacher, Naruto. Tomorrow you can now learn water walking. Whoa, really? That's awesome, you're the best Hinata. Naruto jumped down from the tree and gave his teammate a hug. She promptly passed out. Naruto looked sheepishly at his sensei and other teammate. Guess I just don't know my own strength. They both shook their heads at his cluelessness. She must have been tired because they weren't able to rouse her until close to 11. She sat up groggily at first but then seemed to become aware of the company she was with. She shot up fast from the chair at Ichiraku's she was at. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I didn't mean. Slow down there, Hinata. Guy placed a hand on her shoulder to show he wasn't mad. I can only take the blame as your sensei. I should have realized that this new schedule would take some adjusting too. People don't get used to it overnight. Hinata nodded slowly after taking a few deep breaths. The blush was slowly leaving her face. We can take the rest of the day off if you'd leave. Hinata suddenly shook her head violently. No, I wish to continue. She surprised herself with the sternness in her voice. Her blush heated back up. Now Lee and Naruto were giving her a concerned look. They surely thought she was holding them back. Even if she wanted to continue. Guy needed no other convincing. Okay, guys. You heard your teammate. We're heading to the Hokage Tower to get a mission. Yosh. A mission. Naruto and Lee rang out together. Lee gave Naruto a peculiar look but Naruto just smiled back. Yosh. It's a cool word. He explained. You don't mind, do you? Not at all. I am just surprised and refreshed by how open-minded you are, Naruto. It is a great difference from that cold fish, Neji. Naruto blanched at the name. They both laughed and started running off towards the tower. The rest of the assembled group just stared. They're so alike it's frightening, Tsuki muttered. Ayami giggled. I think it's cute, they're like brothers. Speaking of family, I was meaning to ask, Tsuki addressed Guy who gave him his full attention. Is that Lee fellow your son? Hinata actually looked up curiously at that. She had been kind of wondering the same thing but decided not to ask. Guy's laugh boomed across Konoha. No, not my son. While leaders look like me, the eyebrows are much too different. Mine are much thicker. Although Lee does try to imitate my daring good looks and I would give him an A+ on his attempt, there is just no comparing to the real deal. Everyone stared at Guy with an open mouth. A fly could have easily landed inside any of them. Well, Hinata, let's not fall too far behind. He took off, followed quickly by Hinata. I really hope Naruto doesn't turn out exactly like that Lee boy. Tsuki muttered. They're good guys but 2 is enough. I don't know, Dad. Naruto would look good with a blonde bowl cut, don't you think? Ayami laughed but her father just kept staring down the spot his customers disappeared from. Naruto and Lee were dashing through the trees. Lee was going so fast he was almost a green blur. Naruto was also moving at great speeds but he wasn't even close to Lee yet. There it is, Lee shouted. Where? I missed it. Naruto looked around on the ground. Suddenly he saw it. Just a little brown blur. Ah, I see it. It's going left, bushy brow. You jump ahead to cut it off. I'll stay behind it. Roger, good thinking, Naruto. With a great jump Lee flew far ahead into the trees. Once he landed he quickly turned around and dove. Naruto dove for the blur at the same time. It was trapped now. At least, that's what they thought. The blur jumped high and with nothing in between, Naruto and Lee collided into each other. Hard. The blur, now distinctly a cat, landed nimbly on top of them both. Much too nimbly for its overweight self. It trotted off into Hinata's open arms as she looked in horror at that state of her teammates. Hey, are you alright? Hinata now petted the cat that was purring in her arms. That damn cat. I'll kill it. Naruto rose to his feet while holding his nose. Lee's head had connected with it and Naruto was sure he heard a crack. The cat hissed at Naruto. Lee just laid on the ground, holding his head. I have fought bandits on C-rank missions that lacked a fire as intense as that feline's. What a truly worthy opponent to have in this village. Worthy is right. Guy landed on the ground near his team. You need to increase your weights again, Lee. That cat is faster than you yet. After this mission I will get you more. After that we can begin our afternoon training. Guy started leading the way back. I can't believe it took us 5 hours to locate and find that damn cat. Naruto was glaring daggers at the object of his speech. The cat all too eagerly returned to glare. Hinata knew it shouldn't have been funny. But the sight of Naruto with his bloody nose, in a stare down with a cat made her giggle. Naruto, for his part, tried to look offended. What? You're on his side, aren't you? And no, Naruto-kun. I wouldn't ever betray you. Hinata had taken him literally, and the other context of her words caused her to blush deeply. I'm joking, it's okay, Hinata. I know you're too nice to do something like that. Naruto was oblivious, he simply thought he'd offended her. Lee watched them with an amused smile the whole way. The team sat breathlessly under a tree after their evening exercise. Guy stood over them smiling proudly, his chest heaving heavily thanks to his own rigorous workout. Naruto shivered slightly at the thought of what kind of training his sensei had to do to be able to wear himself out like that. The man's energy had seemed even more vast than his own. Well, that was quite the workout. Naruto yawned tiredly as he stood up. I think I'm gonna go get me some ramen, you guys wanna join? Naruto looked at his teammates. Yosh. My fire is barely flickering, Naruto, I shall go home and to let it rekindle over the long night. Lee jumped up but stumbled. He had clearly overexerted himself with his increase in weights. Naruto looked at Hinata. I have a few things to do before I will return home, but I'll see you tomorrow, Naruto-kun. Alright, I'll see you all tomorrow then. Naruto turned around and strolled off. They all watched him go. When he was just out of earshot, Guy spoke. Good luck with your hunt for knowledge. When they turned around, he was gone. How did he know? Hinata looked mystified. Simple, he is Guy Sensei. Enough said. Hinata looked over at Lee. So what is the plan? I will explain in a second. Lee began rummaging through his back pouch. Here we are. Lee pulled out a scroll and unrolled it. With a quick hand sign, a bag from the store yesterday was there. What is that? Hinata peered over curiously. This is the official start of our investigation. Lee whipped out a deerstalker cap, a magnifying glass, and a smoking pipe. Lee was soon blowing bubbles from the pipe and looking at the grass with his magnifying glass. I don't understand. Hinata stared blankly at Lee. It is elementary, my dear Hinata. Every detective needs a hat, pipe and a magnifying glass. They cannot go detect stuff without it. Lee nodded at his own brilliant reasoning. Hinata just shook her head. The plan. Also elementary. Hinata wanted to groan, they were wasting time. We start at the library. Hinata wondered if the pipe helped him come up with such a genius plan. Psst, Hinata, come look at this. Hinata sighed for the umpteenth time that night. She had just found another book on types of seals and was setting down to read it. Lee was waving her over to the book he was looking at. Not that he could read it with his magnifying glass making the words big and blurry. At least he was quiet, kind of. They had almost got kicked out upon entry thanks to her teammate. Naruto's birthday. Lee whispered as Hinata appeared next to him. Hinata looked at it curiously. I can't read it, Lee-senpai. Hinata tried to brush his glass out of the way. Lee just answered it for her. It is October 10th, 13 years ago. Hinata didn't need to ask now to know there was something special about that date. Everyone knew it was the day the Kyuubi attacked. Did it have something to do with Naruto? What are you thinking? Hinata looked at Lee expectantly. It should be treated as a clue even if it is not related. Everyone knows the Yondaime killed it. It would at least explain why Naruto's parents are dead. Lots of orphans were made because of that fox. Lee didn't say it, but he was one of them. Have you found anything on his parents? Hinata was curious now. She had never heard Naruto mention them at all. She would have at least expected him to brag about his parents being awesome ninja every once in a while, but she wondered if he even knew the names sometimes. What Lee said next only confirmed her theory and confused her even more. It is strange. I looked up the last name Uzumaki, but his is the only one in the village. From what I have gathered, the Uzumakis were a clan of seal masters from the Whirlpool country. This startled Hinata quite a bit. Was Naruto a foreigner? Then it hit her. You said were. Hinata didn't like the implications of that. Yeah, they were wiped out. Other villagers feared their power, so they just killed them. Then wouldn't that explain why Naruto is hated? Hinata asked it, but even she had her doubts on this theory. Not likely. Supposedly, the Shodai Hokage was also married to an Uzumaki. We were on good terms with them. That at least explains why we would have saved someone like Naruto. Lee's head was starting to hurt. There was more to Naruto than he at first thought possible. Maybe they feared the people that wiped out the clan would come looking here. Hinata couldn't stop thinking of possibilities. Without even realizing it, she said that last one. Maybe, we need more information. Did you find anything on seals? Hinata shook her head. Nothing as complex as what he has. I just started this one, but so far I don't recognize his at all. She was feeling useless. Compared to Lee, she had found nothing. Maybe it was the hat. She stomped that thought before it got any further. And the plot thickens. Lee scratched his chin thoughtfully. Let us end here tonight. We should start asking people Naruto knows after one more day here. Hinata nodded. She was tired and they had training early again. So with that they retired their search for the night. They both arrived the next morning with bags under their eyes. Neither of them had slept well at all from all the thoughts of Naruto running through their heads. Guy and Naruto both couldn't help but worry for the two of them. Guy-sensei, what do you think happened to them? They were now on their second rotation and Guy was beating at his clones. I never thought I'd see Bushy-brow tired for morning training. Naruto added. Yes, it is quite disturbing. I wouldn't trouble yourself too much with it, they'll be back to normal tomorrow. Guy wasn't going to say anything, but he had a good idea what had cost them their sleep. Soon it was time for Hinata to teach Naruto water walking. They went to a nearby riverbank as instructed by Guy-sensei. Okay, Hinata, what do I gotta do? Naruto peered anxiously at the water. What? Hinata asked. She had gotten lost in thought on the way over. She hadn't even realized they were there and missed Naruto's question. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun, what did you say? Naruto stared at her closely for a minute. Hinata could have sworn she saw the gears turning in his head. He was debating something. He finally just repeated his question. What I gotta do to walk on water? Hinata couldn't help but wonder what other thoughts and possible questions had run through his head. What made her more nervous was the fact that he didn't ask them. Naruto usually asked whatever was on his mind. She put her own questions aside for later. Walking on water requires a steady stream of chakra. A lot more is used than when you walked on the trees, but in a way this should make it easier for you. Hinata explained. So just channel chakra into your feet and I will tell you if it is too much, same as with the trees. Naruto nodded excitedly and began channeling his chakra. To Hinata's great surprise, it was far too little this time. More than needed to walk on trees but not enough to walk on water. This spoke volumes for his increased chakra control. More chakra, Naruto-kun. She told him quietly. Right, will do. Naruto channeled a little more until Hinata told him it was all right. Naruto then took a hesitant step into the water. He didn't sink. Naruto placed his other foot in. Hey, I got this. Naruto went to take another step but lost his balance. He fell face first into the water. He walked out spitting water from his mouth. What the hell happened? He sat down, pouting like a little child. Hinata couldn't help but giggle at his reaction. The funny way Naruto did everything could always make her laugh. Naruto looked at her and smiled slightly. He liked getting people to laugh. Hinata began to explain what had happened. When you lifted one foot, you increased the flow of chakra onto the other foot. This caused you to slip. It's a common first mistake. Hinata would know, she had taken a while to get it herself. It didn't help that she was only 5 when she was being taught. Ah, I get it, let's go again. Naruto stood up but paused. He then started to take his jacket off. Naruto-kun. Hinata blushed and turned around quickly. She knew he wasn't doing anything provocative but she couldn't help it. Naruto turned and suddenly blushed a little himself. Sorry Hinata, I can keep my shirt on if you want. Hinata shook her head quickly so Naruto just shrugged. He didn't want to get his clothes more wet. Well, please watch me channel my chakra. Alright. Hinata took a few calming breaths and turned around. She nearly gasped. There it was. Naruto's seal, open completely to her sight now. She studied it for a second before she realized Naruto was eyeing her wearily. Realizing she was caught, she figured she had to say something now. That is an interesting tattoo. She said slowly, watching Naruto's reaction. He had been very tense but some of it seemed to leave as she spoke. She realized she had to ask, she wouldn't get a chance like this again. It almost looks like a seal, but I've never seen one like it. She had meant the statement to come across as offhand but Naruto seemed immediately on guard again. If it is a seal, I wouldn't know. I've had it as long as I can remember. Naruto was talking slowly, carefully, Hinata realized. As far as she could tell, he wasn't lying though. Maybe he didn't really know. I always thought it was rather cool looking, right? I'm a real badass with this. Naruto laughed, but Hinata could hear how nervous it was. So she forced herself to giggle too. He looked satisfied. Good. She'd do anything to make sure he wasn't uncomfortable. Now watch me master this. Naruto started walking to the water. Naruto-kun, don't. Hinata shouted too late. Naruto was airborne. He landed painfully on the ground. It was exactly like his first attempt at tree climbing. Right. Less chakra this time. Naruto jumped to his feet and Hinata breathed a sigh of relief. Sometimes Naruto seemed invincible. Just maybe not emotionally. He was so guarded. In some ways even more so than herself. That left Hinata a great deal to ponder on. Lee and Hinata walked through the streets of Konoha together again. Lee had his deerstalker on and the pipe was in his mouth. They were almost to the library when Hinata stopped. Lee appeared at his teammate. What is it? He asked. Lee-senpai, I don't think we're going to find what we need here. Hinata couldn't be sure, but having looked at Naruto's actual seal she started to think it was much too complex to be in the library. I say we just go to asking people close to Naruto. Lee stared at her curiously for a minute before nodding. I suppose you are right. We may cover more ground this way. We can always resort to the library later. So who do we start with? Hinata thought for a second before she knew who was first. Iruka-sensei was an instructor at the academy and the only one to show Naruto-kun any kindness. He's definitely our best bet. Right, then let us go. Lee started walking down the street. Lee-senpai. Yes, Hinata. The academy's that way. Hinata pointed in the opposite direction Lee was walking. Right. To the academy. Lee was now off in the right direction, an embarrassed Hinata following behind him. Iruka saw quite a few of his students that had graduated in the past. In fact, he had already treated Naruto out the other night. It was nice to see his students and ask how they were doing in the ninja world. One student he never expected to see though, especially in his classroom again, was Hyuga Hinata. Not that he minded, he liked Hinata. She was quiet, a great student. However, he couldn't fathom why she had to bring Guy's miniature clone with her. Nor could he imagine why said clone was wearing a hat and blowing bubbles out of a pipe. Sensei, we have a question. Lee wasted no time. Iruka had to wince. This boy was exactly like his sensei, right down to the loud voice. Well, I am an academy instructor. I would be happy to answer any questions you have. Iruka smiled in what he hoped was sincere at the spandex-wearing ninja. Yes, why does everyone hate Naruto? Iruka had to rethink his last statement. He would have happily answered any question but that one. He sighed and looked warily at the two students in front of him. To his surprise, even Hinata looked incredibly determined about this. Well, you know, Naruto ruined a lot of buildings with all, Iruka had started to say. We know it's not pranks, sensei, the hostility is too much for something like that. Iruka was surprised. It was Hinata who had cut him off. Iruka was stuck now, he didn't know what to say. They were clearly onto something. You cannot tell us either, is it because of that capital offense? Lee had to find a way to get something from him. At least, tell us if Naruto knows why he is hated. Iruka sighed again. These kids knew more than he thought. They had apparently been doing other research. Yes, he knows. Iruka neglected the first question altogether. That was more than enough for them though. They both bowed low. Thank you, Iruka-sensei, they said in unison before getting up and leaving. Iruka stared at the door in which they left. He really hoped that when they found out the truth, they would accept him anyways. It was apparent they at least cared, for now. Hinata and Lee walked dejectedly now from the academy building. That law has pretty much screwed us. Lee announced his thoughts aloud. Hinata only nodded. She had been thinking a similar thing. With that law, everyone else they could have asked was knocked out. Except maybe the Hokage himself, but they couldn't go there. Now, there was only one person she could turn to. She wouldn't be able to do it with Lee this time though. She would truly be on her own. Lee-senpai. Lee looked at her curiously. Her voice quivered a little when she spoke next. Tomorrow, go to the library without me. What? Where will you be? Please do not tell me you are giving up. Lee stopped and put his hand on Hinata's shoulder. We need to do this together. For Naruto, remember. Hinata shook her head fiercely. I will never give up on this. No, tomorrow. I am going to ask my father. Hyuga Hiashi was known by the rest of the village as a strict man. He couldn't agree more with them. Of course he was strict, the duties of his clan forced him to be. It was this strictness that had caused him to all but abandon his first daughter so he could focus on his second-born, who showed much more skill in the Hyuga ways. Hinata had been too weak, she lacked resolve. Something Hiashi was sure she would never gain. So when she called to meet with him, he was more than just a little surprised by the intense look in her eyes. Something had happened. He hoped to find out in this conversation what it was. Father, there is something important I wish to discuss with you. Hiashi almost visibly raised an eyebrow. Now her stutter was gone too. What was going on with his daughter? Then speak, you wouldn't have called me if there wasn't something to discuss, you are wasting my time. Hiashi wanted to see if he could bring out his daughter's nerves. Find out if they were really gone for good. It is in regards to my teammate, I am concerned about the treatment he gets from the rest of the village, my own clan included. Now Hiashi was really curious. Not only had his attempt to bring her down been a failure, but she wanted to talk to him about her teammate. What did her teammate have to do with the clan? Who were her teammates anyway? Hiashi realized he hadn't even bothered to ask who she was teamed up with. Just another part of the exile of his daughter. He practically didn't talk to her anymore. He had missed a lot, he realized. Yes, your teammates. Who are they again? He watched his daughter narrow her eyes the slightest of a fraction. It would have been lost on anyone else but him. She had apparently not missed that he didn't know her teammates to begin with. Rock Lee, and Uzumaki Naruto. Hiashi knocked over his tea. Uzumaki Naruto. Now her questions made sense. The treatment of the boy was obvious. But what was her angle? Why did she want to know? The tea he had spilt was the last thing on his mind now. I could arrange for your teams to be switched. He started slowly. If you are concerned with being on his team. That is precisely the problem. Hinata was now visibly upset from his suggestion. Excuse me. Hiashi couldn't help it. He didn't understand his daughter's statement. You all just assume that he should be exiled. You don't think about him as a person at all. You just look at him like he's some sort of monster. I'm sick of you all treating Naruto-kun that way, I want to know why. Hinata started panting heavily, then she quickly regained her composure. Naruto-kun. How close was his daughter to this boy? The longer this conversation, the more questions Hiashi was going to end up having. I can't explain it to you. Hiashi was going to say more, but his daughter cut him off. That law extends even into the Hyuga clan. Just what exactly is the law around Naruto-kun? Hiashi's mouth was agape. Not even Hanabi would dare cut him off while he was talking. What's more, Hinata knew of the law. At least that there was one. He realized he had to end this conversation fast. I will answer this one question, but the conversation is over after this. Hinata nodded ever so slightly. At least she was willing to compromise. Shortly after Naruto was born, a law was passed that we are not to speak of what causes us to hate him. This was to keep your generation from knowing. He was supposed to live happily. Instead, all the parents of your generation told their children to hate the boy, but not why. So they did. The law was a failure, but it is still in place and punishable by death. The only one who can tell you is the boy himself. Thank you, father. Hinata stood and left the room. Hiashi rubbed his temples. He had missed so much with his daughter. It was obvious that this Naruto boy was the reason for this drastic change. Hiashi could only hope that it continued. Even if he didn't like the boy. He looked down, he could think about that later. He had tea to clean. When Hinata closed the door, she took a deep breath. That may have been the hardest thing she had done her whole life. She had been constantly afraid of her father to snap at her, call her worthless, something, anything but what happened. Instead, it had been her father who broke composure and knocked over his tea. While she didn't get the answer she wanted, she at least got another puzzle piece. She would have to tell Lee tomorrow morning. Lee and Hinata settled into their fighting stances. Hinata launched herself at him. She swung hard, but Lee ducked and performed a leg sweep. Hinata back flipped out of the way. When she landed, she swung low this time. Lee sidestepped out of the way and brought his knee up to connect with her stomach. Hinata jumped over the knee and rolled on the ground. When she got back up, Lee was coming at her again. Hinata smiled. Now was her chance to tell him she had another puzzle piece. He would be caught off guard and she could land a hit. I figured out his secret. Hinata stumbled. Did Lee really just say that? She didn't have time to think about it as Lee clocked her in the side of the head. Hinata dropped hard. Lee settled down on the grass and smiled proudly at her. Hinata ignored the throbbing pain in her head as she sat up. She had to know. You figured. Sure did. Lee gave her the thumbs up. I know exactly why the village fears him now. Hinata couldn't take the suspense. Well, what is it? She asked in a hushed whisper. Naruto is. Lee paused for dramatic effect. Yes. What? Hinata leaned in even closer. A human exploding tag. Hinata stared at him for a minute, her mouth hung open. Really? That was what he'd come up with. She suddenly couldn't believe she had gotten excited for that. It figured. Lee must have saw the doubt because he started talking quickly. Look, it makes sense. We could not find what seal was in the book, probably because it was forbidden. A seal that blows you up is bound to be forbidden. I mean, that is why parents tell us to stay away from him, they fear he could blow up at any time. They are scared. It also explains the dogs. You know how they get scared before a storm because they can sense it. It here the same here. What about the law? Hinata seethed. For the first time in her life she found it hard to control her temper. What about everyone calling him a demon? How do those fit into your brilliant idea? It's a work in progress, but listen, I think we're heading in the right direction. Lee was starting to get nervous. Hinata was looking pissed. Hinata sighed. You're right, Lee senpai. She smiled sweetly at him. I am. Lee didn't like that smile. Of course, let's spare some more now. Hinata stood slowly and settled into her stance. Lee gulped. He had a feeling the rest of his time with Hinata was going to be painful. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.